This is the Dreyer podcast, a podcast all about siblings and the people, places, and pop culture that raised us. I'm one of the hosts, Ryan. My younger sister, Jacqueline, is the other host, and she'll jump on here in just a second. And today's episode is undoubtedly going to feel like one of those conversations you have with a friend about a thing, and then suddenly that thing is flooding ads in your social media feeds, and you're like, are they listening to us? Today you will find out that in fact, we were listening. Because today's topic is something that I'm sure found its way into conversation with your friends over the past couple of weeks. Today we're talking about siblings Anne and Mary Boleyn, who in the early 1500s taught us that marrying for love brings you nothing but happiness, and marrying for anything else gets you beheaded. But before we talk about that sibling rivalry, we'll spend a little bit of time reminiscing about glorious family vacations that we took when we were children. And then after we're done talking about today's main topic, we'll wrap this episode up the same way we do every one of these episodes on the Dreyer podcast with an unhinged text message from a family member. And this week's unhinged text message is all about southpaws. Let's dive in. Seiko was at an event all weekend, so I tried to squeeze like a few hours after the event just for me, being like, I deserve this. I worked really hard. And so I stayed up.
Me too.
Yeah, so I stayed up to like 1:30 or 2 on both nights. And then of course, like that mean I still get up at 7 something, right?
What did you do while you were having your me time though?
There's this app that I use called HelloTalk. It's like a language exchange app. And I have a few friends on there, like Japanese friends that I go back and forth with. And they have a live feature. And I ended up just watching like random people give an account of their day. And like this one guy I watched. So the whole reason I got started, I saw it live. I've never watched a live on this before. So I clicked this guy and he's like sitting there, he's drinking some kind of alcohol, and he just came back from a date. And he was like, when I tuned in, it was right at the part where he said, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be using these matching apps anymore. And I was like, oh, tell me more. Like what's this? Where's this going to go? He was like, I went on this date, and he's like, she wasn't fat, but, and he kept on saying homely with Japanese pronunciation. He's like, homuri, chotto homuri da kedo. And I'm like, homely, like that's it. I'm searching all online to see if anyone else uses it, but it's because he speaks English. He's like trying to use the English adaptation. Anyways, so he tells a story about how he goes on a date. He shows up. She doesn't look like her profile picture. She's a little bit heavier than he expected, but homely, not fat. And he had just eaten. He thought they were just going for a coffee. And she was like, oh, well, why don't we go to McDonald's? This guy's 30 years old. So he's like, okay. Sure, but I just ate. But I guess, yeah, McDonald's has coffee. We can go. And so he goes to McDonald's and he's getting ready to order a coffee. And so he orders his coffee and turns to her and she's like, I will get a double cheeseburger doubled. And he's like, excuse me, what? She's like, I'll get the double cheeseburger with double meat. And he's like, do you mean 4 patties? She's like, yes, that's what I'd like. And he's like,
please tell me he immediately put a ring on that finger, because that girl is a keeper.
He said, then he didn't want to eat in the restaurant. She suggested that they go eat in his car. So they went back to the car. They sat in the car.
I'm in love with her. Is this my ideal woman?
He drank his coffee while she ate a double cheeseburger in the passenger seat of his car and was like, all right, well, we should do this again sometime. And then just like jumped out, and that was it. And then that was him like starting with like, I think I need to maybe quit these dating apps because they're not bringing me my ideal match here.
I'm into it. I always say the feeling of eating McDonald's in your car while listening to music is like unmatched. It's part of the human experience. We all deserve it. When you said you had some me time and that's what you did, when I have me time, I drive myself to McDonald's and eat in my car. That's my me time.
You know what? I never think of going somewhere like by myself at night when it's me time. Like once I shut it down, I'm shutting it down. Like there's no going outside is not an option. I shouldn't say it. Sometimes I'll go out and just gaze at the moon. I'm not even joking. If I know it's good, I'll just go out there and be like, yeah, all right, it's still there. Come back in, sit down. But yeah, I never think of going somewhere.
Well, I've been spending a lot of time outside at night because last week we got a new puppy in our house. And so most of my time is now spent in the freezing cold. It's so cold here now. We've got a ton of snow. Just standing on my porch going, please, Birdie, go pee. Just go pee. Please. And sometimes she does and sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she comes inside and does the pee on the carpet. And
so this is much more
Things are going great. So yeah, I don't think we said anything about this on the podcast, but our dog, who was 10 years old, passed away in November. And literally the day after that happened, a woman that I'd spoken to before about possibly getting a puppy maybe in the spring.
Because you were looking for a second, right? You were looking for
I was looking for a second, and I told her we'd probably be ready in April or May, when my daughter, our oldest, is planning on moving out, and I was worried about our dog feeling lonely, so I was going to get her an emotional support animal. So I had let this woman know, like, we're going to be in the market April or May, just like keep us in the mix. And the day after Penny passed, she messaged me and said, we've got one available, that she'll be ready in February. The mom dog was having their babies within 10 days. And so we got to choose her. First of all, the woman sent me videos of every puppy exiting the dog's body.
All right, which one? Sorry, they're all still in these sacks. I cannot even. I haven't seen anything.
It was alarming. I did not know we were going to get that personal. First of all, this poor dog's privacy. But we watched them all be born, and then we had to choose.
You say we? Dog. Hold on. Was the family like around?
I sent a few on to my daughter, but I did not make any of my boys watch it, including Justin, my husband, because he has a very weak stomach. So when they were 2 days old, we had to pick. They're like, okay, pick which one you want. Puppies at 2 days old all look like gerbils.
Hamsters, yeah.
Hamsters. So we kind of just like crossed our fingers and closed our eyes and said that one. Well, she was finally ready to pick up last week, and she was in. This is the wildest story. I'm going to upload a video for this too, because I have video evidence of this. But we had to go get her from Wyoming. So it was about a 7-hour drive. And on the way there, we decided to drive through Colorado so we could do the Rockies. We drove through Vail. It's a beautiful drive. You tunnel underneath mountains, and it's super cool. So we took kind of like the scenic route, but we got into Cheyenne really late at night. It was like 10 o'clock, and we had booked a hotel online. There's maybe 3 hotels in Cheyenne. So this one might have cost $93 a night, which should have been my first tip off. But this is not going to be a great experience. But we're just like super exhausted. We're in the car and we pull up, and first of all, it looks like nobody else is there. Like there's no cars at this hotel, and we're like, is it open?
Yeah, is this?
And I'm like, oh no, like there's definitely someone at the desk. So I went in to go check us in while the rest of the family got the bags. And the woman at the front was really interesting. She was like, yeah, I'm going to be here for like 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but then Maria's going to clock in if you need anything. So don't expect me to be here. I'm like, okay, I don't talk to people at hotels after I check in. So thank you. I think we're good. It's 10 o'clock at night. And it had a smell to it, the entire hotel, but each area had a different smell. Like it wasn't a consistent smell all the way through.
There's like one of those scent museums. Have you heard of these? It's like a scent museum. They're like, I'm sure you can figure out where I'm going with this, but yeah, it's a scent museum. So you're going through different seasons.
The lobby like kind of smells like a plasticky, but then like we get to the elevator and that smells like Dorito bags, and I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And
floors smelled like someone had thrown up Dorito bags. Well, so the elevator,
actually, they had tape over every floor but 1 and 2 on the buttons because the other floors were closed. Again, like it's just getting worse and worse. And me being who I am, I'm, like my kids are like, this is not a good hotel. It smells so weird. And I'm like, shh, she's gonna hear us. She's gonna hear us, and she's gonna be so upset about it. So we get in the elevator, we go up to the second floor because that's the only floor open, and then like that hallway smells like burning rubber, and then we finally get to our room. It's the last room in the hall, and it smells like if you go, like, you know, when you were younger and you go to like your grandma's house and she'd have a room like no one really was allowed to go in, and like maybe she kept like figurines in it and something like that.
Clowns. It was always clowns.
Yeah, clowns, dolls. Sometimes, we go in the room and that's exactly what it smells like. It smells like no one has entered this room in 30 years. Everything is so stale. And I'm like, there's no other options. There's 2 other hotels in this, and it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, guys, we're just gonna we're gonna batten down the hatches. We're gonna get through this. It's 10 degrees Fahrenheit there, and we opened up the windows to let air in.
Snow is coming in.
It was so dusty, musty. And Aaron's like, I want to go to the pool. I'm like, actually, we're not going to the pool at any point in time. They also had breakfast. We did not eat the breakfast. But we were getting ready for bed. I had sent Andrew, my middle kid, to the shower. And as we're sitting,
it's in the same room, right? This definitely sounds.
Yeah, we're all in the same room.
To a truck stop.
Honestly, it might have been an improvement. So we're just sitting there watching TV, and Justin looks over next to the bed and he goes, "Are those toenails?" And Ryan, I am not joking. Well, first of all, I was like, I don't want to look. It was one of those things where I was like, no, I can't look, because if I look, then it'll be real.
There are. There's someone. Show me your toes. Actually, don't show me your toes. There are.
So Addie rolls over and she's like, Mom, those are toenails. I'm like, no, please. And I'm just whispering. No, this can't be happening. And we have video. We took video of all of this, of us trying to discern that, yes, they were definitely toenails, because there were several of them and they were just on the floor. And then we made a pact, the four of us. Again, Andrew's in the shower, and Andrew would burn the hotel down if he knew that there were toenails in the room. So we all made a pact that we would not tell Andrew about the toenails until after we left the next day. Because I was like, look, it is 11 o'clock at night at this point. I'm like, we just need to go to sleep. We will be out of here by 7 a.m. tomorrow. I'm like, we just, nobody tell Andrew, please. Like, he cannot handle having this information. And he gets out of the shower and Aaron's like, something happened while you were in the shower. And we're like, Aaron, shut up. And I literally took Aaron aside and I was like, listen, you ruin this. I will never tell you another secret ever again. If you want to be big enough to keep a secret, you have to keep this secret. I'm doing like 70 things. That's
Snitches get stitches, Aaron.
Literally, therapists will tell you never to say to your kid, but I was so desperate that someone was going to tell Andrew about the toenails and we would have to leave the hotel, and I just didn't have the energy for it. So we just like slept next to someone else's toenails that night.
Oh, that is disgusting. So I'm guessing you didn't sleep at all.
No, we didn't sleep at all. The bed was truly like a trampoline. So anytime Justin moved, I flung into the ceiling. It was the worst sleep I've ever had. And then the next day we got up in the morning and picked up our puppy and drove all the way home.
Like, I wonder if there's this like sub-segment of humans out there that just have travel go smoothly always. Like, I wonder, I wonder if there's like a group of people out there that book a hotel, they go there, it's delightful, everyone's friendly, great breakfast, clean beds, nothing delayed. They get the room they booked, like all of these things. Or like, are we the sub-segment where it's like, oh, you're about to go on a trip? Well, let's just throw you some of the curviest curveballs.
Like, okay, well, enjoy the gangrene you're going to get from that shower.
This dates back to when we were kids. Like, you think about it, there are some pretty wild trips that we had as a family growing up. So can you remember any, like, do any jump out in your brain? And like, I swear, by the way, for those who are listening, this is not planned. Like, this is organic content discovery.
Spitballing like you would not believe. Actually, do you remember the time Mom had gone to a camp? Mom was often like a leader for young women in our church, and she had taken them to a camp. So Dad was
bizarre.
In charge of
just
us.
That whole sentence for someone
it's
with
a lot. Yeah, for someone with no context. Yeah. So she was gone, and Dad had us, all five of us, and he took us to stay in a hotel because we were going to go pick her up when she was done. And so he drove us up there, and we didn't stay in hotels very often.
Not really a hotel family.
Yeah, we were definitely
replace
campers.
The H with an M, or replace the whole word with tent.
And so to stay at a hotel was a really big deal. And I remember Dad got one of those, like, it was one of the rooms that had a connecting door, and because there were the 5 kids and Dad, and we were so excited to go down to the pool and the hot tub and everything. Like, we were truly in the lap of luxury, and I got into the hot tub and barfed. And literally like 10 seconds into the hot tub bar. And then Daniel, who is terrified of throwing up, like it's his number one fear in all of life, refused to sleep near me. So I slept in one room by myself, and everybody else slept in the connecting room.
I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that part of it. I remember other parts. Like, I remember going to, maybe there was there a pond in front of the hotel with giant bullfrogs that me and Dan went out and just grabbed by the legs and threw into the water. But yeah, I vaguely remember parts. I do not remember you puking in a hot tub. But do you remember, there's like one of Mom's favorite stories to tell at like a dinner table is when we went on a road trip, as we did not often, but a few times during our childhood, to visit Dad's family in Newfoundland. So it's like a 3, 4, 5 day journey with 5 kids.
Yeah,
like,
I remember it often being 5 days.
We're like, we'll be there in 2 days. 7 days later, we're like, where are we? I'm thirsty. I'm hungry. Where's the car? But there was one time where, and I don't don't believe this was in the same night, but very similar to the story that you just told. We like pulled into like a motel parking lot and there's people like freebasing crack on the curb and there's like a bunch of motorcycles and not like the friendly motorcycle type. I'm making part of this up, but I'm also not like, and I remember we went in and same thing. Like I swear mom was like, we are going to go in here and we are going to go to sleep and we're going to wake up and continue this trip. And like, as we're laying our heads down to sleep, we hear people like swearing, we hear people yelling.
I remember this.
Fights in the parking lot, and we packed it up. Mom and dad were like, we are out of here. Else. Yep. Everyone back in the station wagon. This journey is continuing right now. And we kept it
radioed
moving.
The rest of our family on the CB radio.
The CBs with their code names. Flint, 10-4. And then I think this was the same trip where another time we had rolled into a town without hotel reservations, believing we could just 1940s style waltz into the lobby and go, we'll take a room, please. Like just never, that stopped in the 70s. Like you just haven't been able to do that since the 1970s. This was like 1994. And so we roll up. No hotel rooms in the town of like Sydney, Nova Scotia, or wherever we were. And we ended up finding one hotel and roll up and we're like, hi, we've got this we have this entire family. Because it wasn't just us, right? It was us plus Annie, Gail, Kelly, and Matt. So there's 10 of us.
Yep.
We're like, we'd like a room for 10, please. And like, not only do those not exist, right? And so they like cut us a deal where we could sleep in some boardroom of the hotel for free. As long as we were out by the time the board meeting started at like 7 a.m. the next day. Do you remember this? Like we literally like, think about this. They're like, well, we can hook you up with the boardroom.
And our family being like, sounds great.
This is awesome. This is the coolest. There's people sleeping in cloak rooms. I swear someone slept on the board meeting table. I swear there's cleaning people in there. I'm not even joking. In the morning, we woke up to cleaning people like vacuuming around bodies, being like, it is 6:45. You have 15 minutes to get out of here.
If you couldn't tell, we were a really seasoned travel family. So
there was another trip, same deal, on our way to Newfoundland, different trip this time, I think. And we had this luggage. It was, if you're watching the video of this podcast, there's like a yellow to purple gradient around us. The luggage was like this color right here, this bright orange in the middle. Bright orange. And it was like it's like a step up from vinyl.
Like a naga hide? Would it be called a naga hide?
I don't know what you just said. I've never had that drink. I've never taken a shot of naga hide.
Naga hide? I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
It was like fake leather, right? And
very fake.
We have 5 kids and a station wagon, max capacity. There's no place for the luggage. So what do you do as a family taking a road trip across the country with bright orange luggage and 5 kids? You don't fly. You don't take 2 vehicles. You put that on the roof, right? And so dad had these like bungee cords holding down this 9-piece of luxury orange luggage on the roof. And as we're pulling through this like canyon, there's these giant signs warning the truck drivers and stuff about the wind, because the wind is terribly strong through this canyon. And mom and dad kind of look at each other like, we're good, right? Yeah, of course we're good. Should we take that? No, we're good. Let's just make it happen. And a couple minutes into that canyon, the wind gust came, blew all of the luggage off that roof rack. That orange luggage, it's toppling. And I swear, I'm fairly certain that it was the station wagon where like 2 seats were facing the other way. And me and dad were just watching the luggage topple off the roof rack, breaking open, underwear, socks flying all over because it is windy. Have we established this? It is windy. Underwear and socks blowing all over the canyon. We pulled over to the side of the road and we are like rushing on like the Trans-Canada Highway to pick up orange luggage and our socks and underwear. And we used that orange luggage for like 2 decades afterwards too, and like all shaved on the corners from falling off the roof rack.
Like a reminder that back then you didn't have like wheeled luggage. Like you carried it like a suitcase. Yeah. You carried it like a briefcase everywhere you went, like a little,
like the medical device in Pursuit of Happiness.
Okay, perfect. So you were carrying that around, and I remember we probably were still using it even when I took like our first solo trips to Alberta or whatever. I'm pretty sure the orange luggage was still in circulation at that point in time.
I would have been.
Smell it. I can smell it.
It had like a horse saddle buckle across it, like that. You know, the one that goes under the horse, and I don't know what it's called. I'm sure there's a real word for that. That buckle, it's huge. It's like 20 centimeters across. That's what our luggage had around the top of it. And I swear I would have used that luggage when I was like 21 moving to Japan if Auntie Gail hadn't gifted me 2 suitcases for my birthday just before leaving for my first time coming to Japan. Auntie Gail, because she saw it, she's like, oh, no, we are going to hook you up with some new luggage.
Yeah, that luggage lived down in the storage room next to our circular dried food container. It
also sometimes had food in it.
Sometimes, if we were lucky.
I love that if you listen to the last episode where we talked about our trip to Canada and back home, all of this tracks. Like all of this is like, again, this leaves me wondering, like, is there a group of people out there that just like swipe their credit card, the room's ready, there's a mint on the pillow? Like, does that happen?
No, I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's the circumstances. I think it's the way we deal with the circumstances. Because I think there's people out there that like they find a toenail on their floor in their bed in their hotel, and they I believe, or B, would call housekeeping and be like, hey, can you come up here, or ask to change rooms. I'm like, we cannot do anything about this, guys. This is what we have to deal with. This is our lot in life. God gives his hardest battles to his strongest soldiers. And this is what we like. And then we just deal with it. We took video of the entire thing. I will post it on the Substack. It's gonna be great.
What were you taking video of? The toenails?
Well, as soon as Justin said, "Are those toenails?" Addison turned on her camera and then videoed us getting real close, because I was like, "It's probably like, what are the odds that it's actually toenails?" I'm like, maybe it's just like some yarn, and we get close and it's like, "Oh no, those are definitely toenails." And then I started gagging quite a bit because I was so grossed out. And yeah, whatever. You guys will see. The Crispies will get the video.
What's the name of? Yeah, the exclusive. What's the name of the movie where the family, the dad and the daughter have a little bit of like a rift, and the daughter's like, she was going to go to art school on the other side of the country. It's an animation. It's like a family
Mitchell's
movie.
and the Machines.
Mitchell's and the Machines. Mitchell's and the Machines.
Versus Machine.
Yeah. That's what it's like. Every road trip is like that. Like, replace the machines with like some crack addicted motorcycle riders, motels, boardrooms, tears in the airport, different flights for different people, lost Nintendo Switches. One of these problems is not like the other.
Yeah, because it's much, much worse.
Yeah, but you were rewarded with toenails, so hey.
And they were all supposed to bring us closer together as a family, and I don't think that ever happened.
No, not at all.
No, I remember writing in my journal. Again, I kept very good journals.
When did you get these journals? These
journals are wild. But we had gone camping at Balsam Lake, which was near our house, and I wrote in my journal that I was having fun, even though Daniel Ryan kept throwing a football at my head while I wasn't playing.
Even though,
and I was still like okay about it. Honestly, it was like attention. So I was like, we were playing this game, and the game I would be just quietly reading a book, and Ryan would throw a football at my head, and we laughed and laughed.
And again, super tracks to you being like, no one say anything about the toenails. We're having a good time, even though we're having a good time, which again, I'm sure on a personality assessment somewhere, it's like accepts things as they are, but that's not what it's supposed to mean.
And then the personality machine breaks, because it's like, honestly, what is wrong with you?
Did you say the personality machine? What is that?
Yeah, it's a machine. It's a machine, and you tell it things about yourself. Like, it asks questions like, if there were toenails in your hotel.
Question number one. Not. Would you stop your car to take the luggage and your underwear off the highway, off the Trans-Canada highway on a trip?
Not that even.
The personality machine. This triggers something for me. I may have seeded this conversation by trying to lead it this way. But when we were in Canada in December, I had a bunch of work while I was there, right? So in New Brunswick, I was going to the office for the first couple weeks there. And one of the first days that I was there, we did an offsite meeting. And as part of the offsite, we all had to take a personality test. And I don't know which episode. Yeah, I don't know which episode we talk about, but we do talk about personality assessments in the podcast in one of the first few, maybe like first 5 episodes. And I'm like, seasoned vet over here. I got you all. And so the one we took, it was based on like MBTI. I'm not going to go into all the details of why MBTI is an interesting interesting one and why it exists. We did talk about it in that episode as well. We'll mention it in the notes of this one. But so the instructions were to take the personality assessment and then print out your results like on actual paper. And so we did that. And then we were all going to like go around, because it's a relatively small group. There's like a dozen of us. We're going to go around and like pick out like different parts of the assessment that like really speak true to like who we are and like what things that might make people laugh or like understand like how we communicate or whatever. And we're going around the table, and like first of all we go in and people are putting theirs down on the table, and they have pages and pages of like things. And I'm like when you're looking around, you're like, did I get the right? Is this the right? I've got like 2 pages.
What's a unit circle?
I'm like, yes, I'm like, this is, I've totally, so I'm like looking around, I'm like, did I get the right assignment on this one? Because you guys seem to have quite a bit of information in your personality assessment. And so they're like, all right, so we're all going to read off like this section of your personality assessment so we can all like understand like your communication style or whatever. And so like first guy goes, and it's like, I'll change the names for confidentiality. But
Thanks.
It's like, Jason enjoys solving complex problems with verified and validated problem solving techniques to come to the optimal conclusion for the business outcomes that were defined by leadership. Okay. And the next one, it's like, and Julie finds harmony or finds joy in the balancing of different personalities on the customer side and the company side to reach harmony as a company. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, Ryan, go ahead and read yours. I'm like, Ryan likes to talk with his hands. Like, did you guys, are we all, they're like, that's what, I'm like, Ryan, and it didn't say like whether they're talking about gestures or like as a conversation partner, which was the part that I was like, I don't know. Did we take the right assessment? Did I take the right assessment? And apparently I did, but that's about as deep as it went. So I have definitely evolved since the days of old of personality dimensions. Now it's just
so you don't have any. You don't have personality dimensions. No. You have dimension.
I have dementia. No, we're not making fun of that. No disrespect to dementia. It won't remember anyway. No. It won't remember any of this.
Okay, I can laugh because I will have dementia one day. I know it's not funny, guys. It's not. One day I will not remember you. I hope.
I probably won't put that on the podcast.
I'll just listen to the podcast. That's just for us. I'll just listen to these podcasts and remember the good old days.
I'll tell people to turn it off because I don't like the noise. Like it hurts. The cackle hurts my ears.
What's that sound? It's like, no, never mind. We're not gonna go. Rein it back in. Okay. I have a question today that kind of goes with our topic. Do you want me to ask that question?
Imagine I was like, no, we're just gonna move to the topic.
Actually, I had a better question. Okay. We have a sibling story, one of our classic sibling stories today. And this kind of leads into it. Out of all of our siblings, did you ever feel rivalry towards anyone? And if so, who was it specifically? We're going to light the family chat on fire today.
Honestly, if we're looking at the hierarchy of our family, you've got me at the top. You want me to know whatever you're drinking. You've got me at the top. You've got Jonathan just a little bit under there. And then the rest of you are somewhere near the bottom.
Okay.
And so honestly, one of the benefits of the main character syndrome that I really said that with the pronunciation over enunciation like we do on this podcast. I think one of the maybe benefits of main character syndrome is that you're the main character. You can't even consider somebody else.
You're like, we don't compete because we're in different brackets.
You're a side character. You are part of my story in this family. Even the parents, they're just characters in my story.
They're foils.
Yeah. So no, I don't think I ever felt a rivalry. There were times where it was like, oh, why does he get it and I don't get it? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why like mom and dad for every Christmas until we moved out of the house, me and Dan just got the same gifts, in different colors. Right?
Hey, me and Jonathan too, which was really fun because we are different genders and they would put us in the same clothes.
And you didn't play the saxophone, which made it really weird to get reads in your stock. Just give it to Jonathan.
Yeah. So
as I answered, no, I didn't really feel a rivalry not because obviously I'm joking. I felt that the closest in age was Dan, and we were so different in most categories that it wasn't really like a true rivalry. And then then there was you didn't know what is it called? That's not gonna be a good joke because I forgot what it's called. A science square? A mathematical circle?
A unit circle.
A unit circle?
Science. No, it's science square.
No, I
You're right.
graduated from Exeter, so I wasn't
Okay.
expected to know that.
To know what a unit circle or a science square was.
No, so I never really felt a rivalry you either. And then Jonathan
Okay.
Dallin were the little boys. The little
Boys. Yeah, I don't know if we've said before that we always referred to you and Daniel as the big boys and Jonathan Dallin as the little boys, and I was dead center.
The divider. You were the divider.
I was the divider. I still refer to Jonathan and Dallin as the little boys. They are grown men who are much bigger than me, but they're still like
I'm bigger than the big boys.
Yeah, I'm bigger than the big boys. I'm always like, oh, have you talked to the little boys lately? It's just like Jonathan's like, please stop calling me that. I was thinking about this question too because I kind of had definitely now I feel no rivalry towards anybody. I think as kids, probably like my rival in the family would have been Daniel, and
really
simply because we are very far apart in the spectrum of personality. We just are very different people. Now that's great because we get along just fine. But as kids, I did see Daniel as my rival because he was like the opposite of everything that I was doing, and I would get really upset if like I would be good. I considered myself to be really a good girl, and I did the things that I was supposed to do and made sure no one had to worry about me. And Daniel would do something that I had done all along, and everybody would be like, did you see Daniel did that thing? And I'd be like, I'm always doing that thing. So I did feel like a rivalry towards Daniel for many years until I moved out, I guess, because I felt like he would always get like accolades for things. And I was like, okay, cool. I always do those things.
Dan was an interesting person as a kid. It's an interesting kid. He was interesting as a kid. We were very close, but if you walked past our house on any given day, you would think that we were the greatest of enemies because we'd be hitting each other with shovels and rakes and
physically fighting.
Yeah, like actual fist fighting. But then afterwards we'd be good. But Dan was pretty funny because like he'd come out like on a Saturday morning when mom had been like, you guys go out there, rake the grass and pick up the dog droppings. She never said. We always called it dog dirt instead of like
dog dirt. Wait, I forgot about that.
Yeah, we called it dog dirt. No, we never called it go pick up the dog poop, the dog
Ooh,
crap.
No, we would never say that word.
Go pick up the dog dirt to like make it maybe less gross for us. I don't know. So I'd be out there like I've got plans that afternoon and I'm like, I got to get this done so we can go out. And Dan would come out like, ugh. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, cleaning so we can go out. He's like, oh, I don't have any plans today. I'm like, yeah, but this is our job together. He's like, no, I don't think you heard me. I don't need to go anywhere today. So
I don't need to do this job.
Yeah. So if you want to go out, hey, it's on you to get this done. And I'm like, you
diabolical.
Then erupt into, and then all he really wanted to do was fight. That's all he actually wanted to do. Right. So we get into a fist fight, we cry, then we'd make up, then he'd help me clean, and then we'd go hang out together.
Yeah. Daniel contains multitudes, I think, this podcast. Okay. So why I was asking that, because today I want to talk about one of my favorite sibling rivalries of all time. And this is just one of those things that I happen to know a lot of stuff about. There's no reason for me to know things about this. It's like our very
Please
first episode.
Please don't be murderers. Please
it's not murders, but we are going back to the British monarchy, which is the thing that I know the most about. So tell me if you know anything about the names that I'm going to say. Mary.
Can I tell you right now? No.
Yeah.
The answer is
well, no. Maybe you do. Maybe. Okay. What if you do? Have you ever heard of Mary and Anne Boleyn? Do those names ring a bell?
Is Anne Boleyn Toenail? Is that the first and the last name, or are you saying Mary and Anne Boleyn? Is this not a makeup brand?
No. Nope. That's Maybelline.
Mary. It's Mary Evelyn.
Mary Anne Boleyn. They are the sister. Mary and Anne are the sisters. Their last name is Boleyn.
They're the Boleyn. Can I get
the Boleyn sisters?
Country of origin, please. What's the spelling of the last name?
Country of origin. Well, the spelling would be Boleyn.
Okay.
Okay.
I have never heard of them.
Pictures up? Okay.
I've never, but I am, as we like, I will be Googling this. I will be on Wikipedia.
Oh, I'm excited for this.
Never heard of
the bonker story. Love it. This. You're exactly who I want to talk to about this. I don't
someone who doesn't know anything about, who knows nothing about anything. Someone who doesn't know anything about anything. That's what I want to talk to.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about why they were such amazing rivals. Why I'm so obsessed with them. I'll cite some sources at the very end. Right now, just assume that I know everything about this and it's all coming from my own brain. Mary and Anne Boleyn are sisters from the Boleyn family. Obviously, we don't know exactly when they were.
You know a lot.
I know. The problem with female characters in history is that nobody really recorded anything about them because they were not boy children, and so we only have approximate dates. Mary was the oldest. She was born around 1499, and we know Anne was born either 1 year later or 7 years later. There's nothing in between. And they also had one brother named George, who was born in 1504. We know when George was born because he's a boy. So much fun. Love that. As they grow up, the Boleyns are a pretty influential family. They live in England. They are a noble family, and their dad is very educated, and he's very smart in trying to get his family family to rise higher in status. So he makes sure that his daughters are as well educated as his son, which is interesting for the time. And it sounds like, oh, like he was a feminist. No, he wasn't. He just knew that having educated daughters would make them more marriageable in the long run, and a good marriage could raise them higher in their status. So that was
fully
like
into it just for him and his family, rising to the top.
That's what he wanted to do. His name was Thomas. So he has them go through the same education that George would go through. And in 1513, Anne is invited to the Netherlands to join the court of Margaret of Austria. And that's really interesting because Margaret of Austria was known for basically creating like the best women in Europe at the time. Like people would go to her to learn to be like more educated, exactly what like a husband would want. It was like a finishing school kind of that you would go to. What's interesting is that Mary is the oldest daughter and she should have had the chance to go, but they chose Anne to go. And they chose Anne to go because Anne was honestly, what we know from the records is that she was very smart and intelligent and engaging. And their dad kind of thought like this opportunity was better for Anne, that he would get more out of the opportunity if he sent Anne to Margaret of Austria.
The Ryan of the family. That's what I'm hearing.
Sure. I would like to send you away sometimes. So she goes to live in the Netherlands. And in 1514, Mary is invited to, again, through her father's scheming, he's always scheming of where he's going to put his daughters, to be a maid of honor for King Henry VIII's sister. She's going to go marry the King of France. He is extremely old, but he is getting married and it's supposed to create an alliance between England and France. And Mary is invited. She's a teenager at this time. She's invited to go along and live in the court in France for a little while during the wedding proceedings and everything. When she goes to the French court, King Louis, I think it's the 12th, I'll check it. King Louis, who was the king at the time, dies almost immediately right after the marriage. So they're kind of stuck in France for a little bit. And Mary then is around when they crown his nephew, who is Francis I, as the new king. And Francis I is very young and super fun. And he's known as a great womanizer. And he starts paying attention to Mary, and Mary becomes his mistress for up to 5 years. She's the mistress of King Francis. And in the historical record, she's quoted as being like the most famous whore in all of France. That's what they call her. Man. So like, think of this. So Mary's in France doing this. Anne's at her like super special finishing school, basically learning how to be like the perfect lady. And you can kind of get a sense of like how their personalities are too. Mary's a good time girl. Like she is down for anything. And Anne is kind of more uptight and more like she's really into conversation, and she's kind of schemy too, as she learns through Margaret of Austria like how to get what you want as a woman in a patriarchal society like 1500s Europe. So that's what she's learning at the same time as Mary's just like partying it up in France.
I love this contrast that you have just painted. And Mary sounds like a real fun time. My
kind of gal. So
she's at the Dolly Parton bar.
I wish.
Charcuterie boards.
Charcuterie, just tasting things she likes. After Anne is done in the Netherlands, she actually goes to France as well, just in time to have Mary leave and go back to England. Mary's basically summoned back home to England. They're like, I think their dad was ready to get Mary married off and start to see kind of the fruits of his labor. So as soon as she gets home to England, she begins working for the Queen of England, Catherine. So she's working as one of her maids of honor, and she's at court and she marries a man named William Carey. King Henry VIII attends the wedding, which is where he notices Mary and realizes Mary is the same Mary he's been hearing about from his good friend Francis I.
Let me tell you, this girl, she is a good time.
The thing about Henry and Francis is they are also rivals, and Henry always wants what Francis has. He's younger, he's more fun, he's in France, and so Henry really wants his court to be like that. So as soon as he realizes who Mary is, he starts pursuing her, and almost immediately after her actual marriage, she becomes King Henry VIII's mistress officially. And back then, back then there was an official mistress often, especially if a marriage, which his current marriage was no longer like a super loving marriage. He would ask people to be their official mistress, and that was your title at court as long as you had it.
I want to know what that process looks like. Like, do you submit documents declaring that your marriage is not fun anymore? You're like, this isn't what I signed up for.
This isn't for me.
Dead marriage, but we're still together. And I'm looking for some official mistresses now.
Honestly, pretty much. Queen Catherine was always really good at turning kind of a blind eye towards the mistresses and that kind of, because that was her job. She was raised to be a queen. She knew that was part of the gig. And so she knew that Mary was the official mistress. And it was like, that's just part of the way it goes. Anne comes back to court in England in 1522. By then, Mary has had 2 children, and they're rumored to be King Henry VIII's. But King Henry VIII really liked to specifically use mistresses that were already married, so that if they got pregnant, it was easy for him to say, "Oh, hey,
I had nothing to do with that."
Like, clearly. So when Anne comes back to court, she's very popular. Again, she's spent time now in the Netherlands and in the French court, and she's learned a thing or two. Like, she is the it girl of the moment. She is the moment. She even wears like different styles of clothes that they're like, "Oh, Anne, where'd you get that amazing hood?" And she's like, "It's French."
That bonnet, girl. Let me tell you.
And so she's really popular, and Mary is starting to see things cool down with the king by now, especially as she's been pregnant quite a bit. It's like she's not as fun as she used to be, according to Henry. And so things start to kind of cool off. But she's had all of these things. She's gotten jewels. Her family's gotten land. As official mistress, she's gotten a ton of power, and she doesn't want to see that power go away so quickly. So as Anne comes back to court, Mary thinks, okay, keep it in the family. Why don't you just go ahead and you start catching the king's eye? Because then we don't have to lose our titles and our lands. The Boleyns still stay number 1. So she kind of puts a bug in Anne's ear. She puts a bug in Henry's ear as well. And Anne first is presented to court during a pageant where she's dressed up, and King Henry takes shine to her almost immediately. And also the fact that she's the most popular person at court. Like, he wants the best of everything.
Anne was the most popular.
Anne was the most popular, yeah, by far. During this time, Anne meets a guy. His name is Henry Percy. They even get secretly engaged. She's in love with Henry Percy, but no one agrees with it. His father will not approve the marriage, so it's dissolved. And they send her away very quickly to not be at court anymore. And by the time she comes back to court, Henry Percy's married to someone else. Like, that's how quick it was. I kind of believe also King Henry VIII had something to do with that, because he had already seen Anne and known that he was interested in her, and to just send her away and get Percy married off as quickly as possible kind of moved things out of the way.
That's your personal theory.
That's my personal theory. That's I know a thing or two about this very obscure topic. So Anne comes back to court. They're both serving Queen Catherine. They are ladies in waiting to her. And Henry's starting to pay attention to Anne and kind of tries to use the same playbook that he used with Mary. Like, here's some rubies. Will you be my official mistress? And Anne, because she has spent time watching other great ladies in the way that they handle men, she's like, "Oh, I couldn't possibly. You are a married man, sir." And she really puts him off. She really, really plays hard to get. And
she's just driving the price up. Is she just like, "No, we can get more out of this"?
She knows what she's doing. And she leaves. She tells him, I need space. This is too much for me," and leaves court again. And that just makes him like even crazier. Like, now the first time in his entire life, someone has told him, like, you can't have what you want. And it does exactly what Anne wants to have happen, which is make him completely in love with her. And she also tells him, we can never be, because you are married. And as long as you're married, we will never have a relationship. So does Henry say, okay, I am a married man, I should take this and just understand it and pay attention to my wife? No, he doesn't. He petitions to annul his marriage to Catherine, his wife. And he does this.
So Anne is just reading from the playbook. I assume this. Have you ever seen, like, when, I think it's like college football, the quarterbacks have like the playbook like taped to their arm, and they're like just looking through it for like which scenario means which play?
No, I thought it was like in like the pickup artist, when it's like, first you need to neg them. Yeah. Like, you're married. Like, she's definitely
give me your palm. Let me read your palm. You do that. It's like, that's the next thing. I've read those books, by the way. But
okay, great.
I read too. All right.
That's why you're happily married today.
I read Seiko's palm.
Works every time. So she tells him that she doesn't want to be a mistress. She wants to be queen. And those are like basically like her conditions for being together. She's like, until you make me queen, nothing will ever happen between the two of us. So Henry sets about trying to find a way to annul his marriage to Queen Catherine. He does this by petitioning Rome. This point in time, all of England is Catholic. And he says Queen Catherine was actually married to his brother originally. They had a very short marriage, and his brother died. And Henry kind of inherited her as he inherited everything else.
As most love stories start.
Yeah, so sweet. And
would you like
Queen Catherine... Go ahead. It was in the will. And Queen Catherine says that she never consummated the first marriage with his brother. So everything is okay. But King Henry contends that she did. And because of that, it's incest because she is now his sister. So he's like, we should never have gotten married because Queen Catherine's actually my sister. And this is wrong according to the Bible. Rome, for 5 years, he tries to do this. 5 years, he wants Anne Boleyn so badly that he goes back and forth with Rome. Every time Rome is like, that's not true. Especially because they keep asking Catherine, like, did you consummate the marriage? And she always is like, no, absolutely not. And Henry's like, please just say you did so that we can divorce. And Queen Catherine's never willing to give this up, which fair enough, honestly.
Yeah. The circumstances, I don't know if he's like, please, just say you did so I can leave you for her.
It's not that hard.
Why are you doing this to me?
So Anne goes back to her playbook. Again, she's so good. And she's like, why do you even need to ask Rome anyway? You're the King of England. And Anne Boleyn is the reason the Church of England exists as we know it today, because she convinces Henry that he is called of God and he is the supreme person on the earth, and that he should never have to ask Rome for anything. He shouldn't have to ask the Catholic Church. So basically, King Henry VIII starts the Church of England, and he is the head of the Church of England. So he's like, cool, I grant my own annulment. Amazing. Which is what he does. He grants his own annulment. He sends his wife to a nunnery.
No conflict of interest whatsoever.
No, he's like, this works out great for me. So in 1532, they are secretly married quietly before the dust really settles. And then later that year, in 1533, she's crowned as queen. Anne Boleyn is crowned as queen.
Whoa.
She also gets pregnant almost immediately afterwards, which is great because part of her selling point is King Henry VIII only wants a son. That's all he ever wants because he's a king of England and that's all they ever want. And she promises, she's like, the reason you don't have a son is because you're married to the wrong person. And I will give you a son. I know I will. And so that also,
I know about my body. This is a making factory.
Will almost immediately have a son. So don't you worry about it. And so they get married. They have this huge coronation. The public does not like Anne Boleyn. They love Queen Catherine. She is not well received, but she's pregnant.
Any reason in particular? Is it because she is a mistress?
They think that she's kind of like, that she's honestly, Mary has a reputation, right? Her sister was already there as a mistress, as a reputation. Anne comes in, they're like, oh great, another Boleyn whore. And that happens a lot through the record of the Boleyn sisters being called whores. And so I was
about to draw the parallel to like going into a class in high school where the teacher knows Dan. But then you said like, great, another Boleyn whore. I don't think anyone was like, another border whore. No, teacher, that is not okay.
I felt like I was getting the same attitude sometimes though. So later that year, they're so amped up for this baby to be a boy that they plan all these festivities. They send out all these announcements that announce the birth of a prince. Wouldn't you know it, she gives birth, and what is it? A girl.
Hey!
A girl named Elizabeth. It's so funny because they also said they just wrote SS on the end of Prince on all the invitations they had already made. But Henry's so upset about this that he cancels all the parties, festivities, or whatever. Like outwardly, he's pleased to have a child, another living child, because it proves that he can have more living children, but he's obviously not happy about it. Throughout their marriage, she has 3 more pregnancies, all resulting in either miscarriage or stillbirth. Oh. The last stillbirth is said to have been a boy. It was late term, and they knew it was late enough that they knew it was a boy when she had the baby, and it was stillborn. Mary, for her part right now, goes away for a little while, and her husband dies during about a sweating sickness. It was an illness like a plague. You'd get really sweaty, and then you die within like 3 hours. And her husband.
Great. Hold on. Let me write that down to my list of worries. because I sweat profusely in social situations.
Whatever you do, just don't get sweaty. It's fine. You'll be fine. Just never sweat. And so her husband passes away and she's kind of destitute. She doesn't have any money. And Anne is like, it's fine. I'll take care of you. I'm the Queen of England. No big deal, right? And so while she's away, Mary marries another man for love, which is not anything any of the Boleyns planned. You never marry for love in the Boleyn family. You marry for status and how high you can get it. So she comes back to court after Anne has had all these pregnancies and stillbirths. Mary comes to court. She's extremely pregnant and like glowing. And she's like, I'm in love, and I don't care who knows it.
Flower petals.
Anne is dealing with King Henry VIII, who is upset every time she miscarries. And he clearly gets the ick from every time it happens. Like he loves her a little less every time it happens. And then Mary shows up to court and she's like super pregnant and beautiful. And again, still just the party queen. And at this time, Anne's just getting like angrier and angrier. She yells at Henry in front of everybody. She's doing all the things that she should never do. Mary comes back to court and she's like, I don't know what's wrong with Anne. This is great. I'm super pregnant and in love. And Henry sees this and it causes huge problems. It causes huge problems in the Boleyn family. Anne and her father are so outraged that they banish Mary from court. They remove all financial support from her and she goes to live far away and not have anything to do with the family. In fact, this is the last time they ever see each other after this blow up.
All because of a little bit of love.
Just because Mary's in love and looks really great in maternity wear.
Her maternity photos were the straw that broke the camel's back.
There you go.
Bracket. The bracket that was on his back.
The bracket, you got it. Perfect.
Like the saying goes, the final straw that broke the bracket on the camel's back.
Well, I actually wrote that it was the last straw because
we're aligned.
Because Mary does have a baby. Yeah, perfect. We're aligned. Mary has the baby and the baby is a boy. And that's the last straw. That's the last straw for Henry. He's like, your sister clearly has no problem having boys. I don't know what's wrong with you, Anne. And he starts paying attention to a new girl, to a woman named Jane Seymour. He moves her into the royal quarters while they're still married.
She shows up one day and there's another girl in her bed. She's like,
"Were you Spider-Man meme?" And he starts using he uses the same wording that Anne gave him to annul his first marriage by saying, Anne, we could never have been married because I slept with your sister. That's incest. And she's like, are you joking me right now, Henry?
Where do you get off?
Truly, where do you get off? And Henry has a habit of when he's sick of his wives, he's kind of like, so this is awkward, but I never want to see you again. You'll be arrested and taken to the Tower. And that's what he does with Anne. She is arrested and taken to the Tower of London, which I have been to. And while she's there... Sorry.
You practice that. You practice that. No, that's in your notes. There's no way you just...
I'm just saying, I think I've made this joke before, but the crypt at Windsor is my Hollywood Walk of Fame. I was wandering down I'm like, oh my god.
Putting your hands in the handprints of prisoners.
Take a picture of me next to this one. So she's sent to the Tower and she is arrested for several things. That she had affairs while she was married to King Henry, treason, and also that she slept with her own brother George. She was also charged with incest. Henry loved to throw out that incest charge. For someone who used it several times on himself, he was like, and you get an incest, and you get an incest. She's arrested in 1536, and she never sees Henry or her family again. Her brother George is executed almost immediately for incest. He was like, cool, it's just like an innocent standby.
Bystander? Stand by. You ready, George?
Okay.
That's a shot.
My brain hurts. She does go to trial. She is not allowed to say anything during the trial, and she's not allowed to, what's the word? She has no defense. And not only that, remember our good friend Henry Percy, the person she was in love with? He's on the jury that unanimously declares her guilty of everything.
Wow.
It is said,
I feel like, if I had to pick apart the trial, I don't know too many things about it, but I did just hear that she was not allowed to speak.
No.
Sure.
Also, I was
odds were stacked against her going in. They're like, all right, you're going to court. One stipulation, you are not allowed to say a thing.
Also, your ex-boyfriend is is here and he's got some things to say. Also, I was like, I made me think, I'm like, if you had to be on the jury for one of your exes, would you, and why? Don't answer that question.
Because they all listen. I'm sure they all listen to this. Like, what is Brian?
I know they
What's Brian up to? It's been 20 years.
How dare he? So she is executed 4 days later on the tower, right after her brother. One thing that's really interesting, Henry, she was originally sentenced to be burned alive, and Henry commutes the sentence to beheading and also hires a really good executionist from France to come do the actual execution. So she was executed by a sword. Usually they would use an axe, but he used his sword, and she was executed in the French way. And French people didn't put their head down on the board to be executed. They sat up straight on their knees, and he was able to get it off. She was quoted as saying in the tower in her last days that she had heard he was a very good executioner, and she was like excited about the prospect of like a good executioner. And she said, I just have a little neck, so it should just take like one swipe. Like that's how resigned she was to being executed. Of course, at this time, Mary is nowhere near court. I think if she had been at court at the time, she would have suffered a similar fate to George and Anne, because it seemed like King Henry was just trying to get rid of all the Boleyns at that point in time. They had risen so high in his court that the only way to get rid of them was to just execute all of them. Like, what else?
You can't just unfriend them. You can't just click that little unfriend button. He's with them for life.
She had flags hanging everywhere. What are you going to do?
What was that? She had flags hanging everywhere. Is that an idiom? Is that what they say in Utah?
No, that's just when she did. Yeah, it's a very Utah thing to say. Flags everywhere.
Wait, are you talking about? She actually had.
Yes,
so
as
lost.
a queen, she would have had her own flags, her own symbols, her own motto, and they would have hung them everywhere when they got married. And actually, King Henry VIII, that's one of his telltale signs that he's sick of someone. He's like quietly just like taking down their flags,
crossing out their names and putting the new mistress beside it.
Like, Henry, wasn't my flag like right there? He's like, what? I don't know. I think they must be cleaning.
I hired new decorators.
I'm actually having some work done on the castle. So Mary lives out the rest of her life in her love match. The man she married was a soldier, so they were very poor for the rest of their lives. But she is the last surviving Boleyn in the entire family. She dies later on in life. She dies in her 40s. The daughter that Anne Boleyn and Henry have becomes Queen Elizabeth I.
Hey.
One of the longest reigning and most beloved of all of England's monarchs. So I always think it's interesting that he wanted a son so bad that he was willing to literally just burn it all down. And in the end, it was his daughter that became the queen. Well, actually, how many?
He didn't burn it all down. He decided to go for a beheading instead.
Cut it all off. Yeah.
Cut it all off. But he was going to burn it all down, but he cut it all off. And so the real moral of the story here, and I know you're about to ask me a question, but the thing I'm taking away from this, I'm looking at Mary and I hear work hard, play hard, long life.
Yeah. Honestly,
YOLO. I think she was the original YOLO.
I think she was YOLO. I think there's something to be said for a good time party girl, and everybody loves them. And do you know how many wives King Henry VIII ultimately had?
No idea, but I'm looking if we're looking at every 4 to 5 years, swapping it out, I'm going to go with 10.
Okay, well, you overshot it, and that's unfortunate because now the number 6 doesn't seem that impressive, but it was 6.
Yeah, it's like one of our uncles. Don't we have an uncle that has 6 wives? Am I allowed to say that? Well, we've already established family doesn't listen to this podcast.
He listens.
He's the only one.
Just this uncle, and he's like, oh.
They remember me.
So yeah, he has 6 wives ultimately, and there's a rhyme to remember how he got rid of them, and it's divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. And so he beheads 2 of them, 1 dies in childbirth, he divorces 2, and then 1 ends up surviving Henry, and he dies. So
got it. So it's not that she survived the beheading. I was trying to figure out.
No.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know what history books you're reading, but in the history books that I don't read, usually end in death.
He married the woman that he moved in after he beheads Anne. He marries her, and they actually do have a son, and it's the only surviving son of King Henry VIII. Unfortunately, he only survives. I think he dies in his teens. He is actually made king briefly, but he's always sickly. She dies in childbirth, and he is, after King Henry dies, his son is briefly made the king, but he dies as well. And that's what elevates eventually Elizabeth to the throne.
Wow.
And that is one of my favorite stories to tell when someone's like, you know what?
How you
What are
doing today,
interested in?
Jacqueline? Oh, you want to know how I'm doing? Much
Actually-
better than Anne Boleyn. I'm sorry, who? Oh, you don't know? Let me tell you.
My other favorite fact about this is that, you know, the song What Child Is This?
Yes.
It was originally called Greensleeves,
Yes.
the tune, and it was written by King Henry VIII about Anne Boleyn.
Really?
Yeah.
But the original lyrics of Greensleeves, hold on.
It's like, alas, something you look me by. He was writing it about how she was never paying him any attention.
So this is prior to him cutting her head off.
Yeah. It was when he was still liked her, before he got the ick.
You know, it's awesome. I was like, let me just read the original lyrics. Oh my gosh, what does this say? I cannot. What are these words?
It's written in like
Old English?
Elven from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it might as well. This is literally, I'm looking at it, a new courtly sonnet of the Lady Greensleeves to the new tune of Greensleeves. Greensleeves was all my oi. Greensleeves was my delight. Greensleeves was my heart of gold. And who but Lady Greensleeves? Alas, my Lou, ye do me wrong. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but to cast me off discourteously. This sounds like a diss. This is like Kendrick Lamar. Drake. He's actually going hard. He's like, to cast me off discourteously. And I have lewd you so long. It really is.
Lewd is loved, by the way.
No, but it's lewd.
I know, but he's saying the word loved. That's what it's saying it in like a sing-songy voice. I don't know why yes, exactly. Yeah.
Got it. Just dig into, and I want to see if there's anything else in here that is
Yeah, here's another wild fact about that. The musician that he got to play Greensleeves for him, for Anne Boleyn, he later executed for having an affair.
Wait, you really did love? No, you told me to write this about Anne. No. Look what you wrote about her right here.
I heard you singing it to her just the other day, off with the set.
Ghostwriter. Just kidding. That's one way to get rid of the ghostwriter. What ghostwriter? He is now actually a ghost. He's just a ghost.
He's a ghost. Anyway, so King Henry VIII is actually buried at Hampton Court, at Windsor Castle. But he chose to be buried with Jane Seymour, the one wife that he did have a son with.
I don't know the reaction. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm really glad to hear that.
No, it's scandalous. Oh,
okay.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
I wonder, obviously we will never know. And I think that's like the not the most interesting, but we'll never know. But like, how did news actually travel? Like, how did people actually get the truth? Because like you said, the history books skew to one gender. And their opinion / records / recollection / fabrication of the events. Right. So like, you always wonder, are we really getting, like, was Mary really like this party hardy, 1999 Paris Hilton, or was she
Paris Hilton?
Yeah.
I think all we can infer is from the records that we do have, and so much of the records is what their dad was doing to use them as pawns. Right. And so he knew where to put Mary where she would be most useful, which is like having fun, partying it up at court. He knew where to put Anne where she would be most useful, which was learning how to be the best of the best, and knew where to put them in the right place at the right time until it was the wrong place and a very wrong time.
Until one of them had their heads chopped off.
I mean, Henry loved to execute people in general, but that one really hurt.
Well, actually, it didn't actually hurt because it was a good executor.
It was a clean cut.
Wow, that's wild.
So that's like, I always say sister relationships are confusing to me and sometimes a little bit scary. This is why. It's because
one of them ends up with their head chopped off.
Because someone always gets hurt in the end, and I don't understand it. So I just want this to be a cautionary tale for you, the only person in my family that has daughters.
Crap, I've been planning this. I'm like, and Noah's going away, and Naya's staying here.
And which one is the funnest? I'm just saying, you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out for those sisters.
Heard and noted.
I'm just actually really glad that I had the opportunity to talk about this, because I have all of this information in my head, and it really means I got to do something with it finally. Justin's always like, why? Why are you watching this documentary? Why are you reading another book about the wives of King Henry VIII? And I'm like, one day, I'm going to have a podcast with my brother and it's going to be about this specific topic.
Just
it's all going to pay off.
It's all pay off. Yeah. And the best part is, as you know, of course, you know, because you do this with me, the podcast, but I don't know these topics coming in. So I have nowhere to run. I can't be like, what's that? I think, wait, Noah just called me. She needs to get picked up for school right now.
Like the absolute definition of a captive audience. And I'm like, finally, someone would listen to me about the
We have it in the calendar. Seiko's well aware that if she needs to go pick up Noah from school, she'll have to do that. I have nowhere to run. I'm like, oh, really? That's really crazy.
Yes. Finally. I will say the reason I got into this in the first place is I started years ago, probably 10 years ago, I watched The Tudors, which is a mini series on, I think it was HBO or Stars. I can't even remember.
For those of you who don't know, that's spelled Tutors. She's not talking
Try again.
Tutors.
Try again.
Really?
Try again.
Tudors.
They're not teaching people math. They are tutors.
Tudor. And for those of you who are unaware, like I was 30 seconds ago, that's Tudors.
Thank you. Good.
Not Tooters, a family that just went out for a great Mexican meal.
Okay, got it. The Tudors, which, it's a miniseries. I was so obsessed with it. I've probably watched The Tudors, the miniseries, 7 or 8 times. It's one of my favorite things of all time. But it then made me go to the library. Like, what year is this? 1994. I'm like, I need to learn more about this.
Pulling out index cards.
I'm sorry, do you have a book about the Tudors? Like, yes, we have several.
I'm making fun, like, oh, I've got nowhere to run, blah, blah, blah. But
you actually do have somewhere to run?
No, not at all. Actually, no, I'm still good for like another 20 minutes. So we can go the extended cut if you want. But the amount of times that I take like stuff that you tell me in these podcast episodes, and like that same day in like a work meeting, I'll be like, just like the brothers who robbed McDonald's. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you guys don't know about the two brothers through the Monopoly games? Let me tell you about this. Like, Ryan, how do you know all of this? Because we're recording every week I learn something new. I'm like, did you guys know how much this reminds me of the blah blah blah, the Plantagenets? And they're like, the sewer, the so what's? I'm like, you guys know about the Plantagenets? Do you guys not read?
They're like, it's really weird how all of your metaphors have to do with siblings and history. It's just kind of strange.
Just the way that my brain works. And they're like, why are you talking with your hands? I'm like, I'm sorry. That's what I do.
That's the second part of your dimensions. Like, also knows facts about little facts, not big facts, but enough little facts ones about history.
Very questionable ones that are easily questioned. But did he? I don't know.
The other thing about this type of thing is that I'll watch like one documentary and they will definitively say one thing, and then I'll watch the next one and they're like, so that never happened, and people just assume that. And you know what? For something like this, I'm just like picking the things that I like the most. Like that's how I read history. I'm like, I like that fact. I don't want to talk about that fact, and that's how we're going off of this. So
I'm a little bit similar. I'll read the first thing and I won't consider anything else. I'd be like, I'm sorry. So all you need to do to convince me, be the first one there. And I'm like, yep. Definitely.
Me reading any page on Reddit, and I'm like, this is my opinion forever now. And then three posts down, I'm like, oh no, this is a different opinion.
This is not my opinion.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
I cannot go back on this now.
So when I was thinking about sibling rivalry, I mean, obviously we haven't had this type of rivalry.
No, we both have our heads.
We both have our heads. You've never gotten pregnant, and I wanted to be pregnant super bad. So that's always been good. It's helpful to be the only girl in the family in these situations where I can have my own. See, we've said before, any one of us, there's an argument for any one of us being the main character of our family. And this is where I really feel like I get to shine as the sole girl in the family. I'm like, well, clearly the family is built around me and the girl in the family.
Literally right in the middle. Just a fortress.
It's a fortress. Like on the family crest, I'm in the middle. Every family pictures, I get to be in the middle of family pictures because I'm also the shortest.
Yeah. Jacqueline, you want to move to the middle? You're like, yes.
I was just talking to one of my friends about I'd seen a video on Instagram about mall fashion shows. Do you remember like that was a thing that happened? Mall fashion shows. And I'd sent it to my friend and she was like, oh, I always wanted to be a mall fashion show. I'm like, actually, I was in several mall fashion shows as a child. And sometimes I tell people that I was a child model. And when we were getting our last round of family portraits done, our family, the Porters, the photographer had never met us before. We hired one when we were all in New Brunswick together. And so I had just hired a girl off the internet that
off Craigslist.
found off Craigslist, basically.
New brand photographer.
And part of the story is that Dallin, our youngest brother, was an actual signed model at one point in time, not at a mall, like an actual model. And when we were taking pictures, the photographer was like, "You guys are really good at this. Like, you guys are like models." And I said to her, I was like, "Actually, two of us were working." Two of us were working models at one point, and I said, "Guess which one? Guess which ones?" And I, to this day, feel very bad for putting her on the spot, but she got them right. So, not for nothing, still got it.
I'm guessing you said it to her, like that's a high risk fabrication, stretch of truth, because we're all there, and you're saying it to her probably just quiet enough that none
just
of us
under
can
my
hear.
Breath.
Yeah.
Two of us
actually models.
We're working models. You could probably guess which ones. I think it's clear.
Well, I think I've already mentioned this in the podcast, but only one of us went viral in India from that day. And
from that reel.
Yeah. From me going, like a Sesame Street character who can't talk.
She guessed it right by saying, "Oh, I know. It's the tall one and the girl." She didn't ever learn our names. It was the tall one and the girl.
So,
which I assume that was me. I am the girl. I am the girl. Like trademark. I am the girl.
No, don't let Noah hear that, because she will assume it was her. There's no other option. And the tall one, I feel like, is a pretty safe bet. We know. Okay, yeah, she's not talking about Dan. One of the tall brothers and the girl.
Yeah, and Dallin also has very chiseled features, so I think that was. I mean, it gave it away. He and I do not have the same chiseled features,
unless we're talking strictly about the nose.
Just the nose.
Chiseled. Yeah.
little bit of chin. When I did the mall fashion show, I was in head to toe denim, and I had my hair crimped. And I used to have, when I was a little kid, when I was like, it must have been when I was like 5 or 6, because when I was in kindergarten, I had hair down to my waist, and they took me backstage and crimped it. It took forever, and I got to wear like a denim skirt with a denim jacket that was bedazzled, and I had little gloves. So it's kind of a big moment for me.
Huge. I mean, someone somewhere has photos of these things. That's the thing.
I know.
Next time I'm back in Ajax in like 10 years, when I'm ready to face the trauma and get on a flight and head back there. But I'm going to go to Southwood Park Public School. We need to do an episode about that, by the way. But I need to go to Southwood.
I'm writing it down.
I want to go through the halls, and no, more specifically, I want to go to the library and be like, "Do you guys have like any photos, any laminated stories?" Because like I said, when I was there as a co-op student in like 1998, and I was going through the library, they had all these laminated books from like when we were kids, things that we would write, and they would like laminate and keep. Did they just throw that all out one day? Did they like replenish the stock and be like, "Yeah, no, none of these kids from the 80s and 90s are here anymore"?
They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, like I want to know, do those things exist? Can I buy them? Like, can I bid on them?
I would like to go to the library at Southwood Park and ask them, like, "Do you still have just like a real ratty copy of the Goosebumps series? Because I would like to take those home with me."
Your notes are
specifically
still
the one about the dummy. Did I ever actually? No, I'm gonna save that for the Southwood episode, because I've got some good Southwood stories.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to the Southwood episode, because I think there are a few people that casually listen to this podcast that also went to Southwood. And if we've learned nothing about this podcast, or at least if we've learned one thing about this podcast up until this point, it's that people really like school episodes, because our Exeter High School episode,
I love them. It's what connects us all. Just like our D-list high school that we went to. Just the love that we have in our hearts for that. And Southwood was at least a B list. It had French immersion.
Big deal.
Which was a big deal.
It was.
Not for me. I didn't speak French.
No. Je ne comprends pas. Jonathan's sweating. Just kidding. He doesn't listen to the podcast.
He's sweating, but he probably just has sweating sickness, so it's fine.
I saw that it was linked to in the Wikipedia article. I'm going to read that later. Like, do I have it? It was an outbreak. It was an outbreak of the sweating sickness. What does that look like? It's just a basketball game.
They're like, is it hot in here? And they're like, "Oh no. Get out.
Imagine
get out."
Bill and Ted style, dropping someone from the 1400s at a basketball game, and they're like, "Everyone is sick. Stay away from me."
Everybody's so sweaty. And where are your tights, sir? Where's your flag?
All right.
Okay, I have I have a text of the week.
Hey, okay.
This time it's with Dallin. He and I were having a conversation for the preamble. Everybody in our family is right-handed except for Daniel and Dallin. So our oldest and youngest brothers are left-handed.
So 2 out of the 5, 40%.
2 out of 5. That's
60% are right-handed, 40%. This argument that you just made, I'm just really like, just so everybody knows.
Just so it's this very rare
almost everybody
left-handedness. And my oldest daughter is also left-handed. She's the only one out of my family.
Is she really?
So yeah, she is. And I had texted Dallin.
You're not lying about that? I don't know why I asked that. So like, wait,
yes,
can we just get this?
Just to make her seem a little more interesting. And like, and I don't know if you know this, but she is left-handed. And actually, she would be considered a witch in the 1600s. So I was
going to talk about the Salem witch episode, but I think I dropped a few episode tidbits,
some breadcrumbs.
Yeah, some breadcrumbs in this episode already. So just go back and listen to all of our episodes.
Okay, which good practice, several times. And so I texted Dallin and said, "You're left-handed, yes, or only Daniel?" And he said, "Yes, I am one of the chosen ones. Why do you ask?" And I said, "I was just reading about whether or not it was a gene, and Addie is left-handed, but Justin and I are right, and so are all 4 of our parents. Just deep down a research rabbit hole for no reason. So the gene comes from you and Daniel because Justin only has right-handed siblings." Dallin said, "Left-hand gang, rise up. We're keeping our kind alive." He said, "A classic Friday morning activity." And then I said, also, because again, I love to learn things and then tell people, a captive audience, about the thing that I learned. So also, left-handed people have better verbal skills in general, which is interesting to me. And yes, I love nothing more to be like, today I will obsess over this thing till I'm the world's foremost expert on left-handed genetics. Also, left-handed people are more likely to have schizophrenia, so don't get too high on that. And Dallin said, "The other day in therapy, my therapist said, I noticed that you say we a lot when telling me about what you're thinking to yourself in a situation. Like, we hate that. So the schizophrenia is on brand." That was our conversation.
And then
more of the story. And then we didn't talk for 4 more months.
All right. Well, as always, thank you for a topic for my meeting tonight when I sit down with the team to be like, did you guys know?
I can't wait to find out how you work Anne and Mary Boleyn into a business meeting.
Oh, I've got so many pathways in. One.
When you're like, let's not lose our heads about this. Am I right? And we don't have an Anne Boleyn
exactly where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. Right?
And they're like, what?
Or that's what we do when we love something. And I'll go about like, did you guys know Mary, she left everything because she found love? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you guys don't know?
And then you're like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't know about this.
That's how I play it up like it is the most general knowledge.
And they immediately log off and Google it.
And the funny part is, like, if you go back to the Plantagenet, even now I still can't say it.
Wow, you still are struggling.
Do you guys know about the Plantagenets? You're like, did you know? Do you know? Do you know right now?
Actually, that's no. Learn how to. I can hear Naya. It's like,
she just yells. Yeah. It's funny. We brought her to, well, not just her. We brought the family. We went to go look at cherry blossoms last weekend, or 2 weekends ago. And me and Noah were kind of like, Seiko was wearing Naya, like in the little like baby carrier thing. And Noah and I would be ahead like 10 steps, like looking at the cherry blossoms or talking about whatever we're seeing or playing some game. And if you get too far away from Naya, she just does that, what we're hearing. Meh, meh, meh. Come back. And everyone's like, is your baby okay? She's quacking. She's like, quack, quack. She's the loudest baby.
I know this is not a baby and this is clearly a puppy story now. But when we got Birdie home, we realized we put her in her crate for the first night ever. And she was supposed to come to us crate trained. The breeder was like, yeah, she's great. All the dogs are great in the crate. And we put her in the crate and she doesn't howl, she doesn't bark. She screams like a person. And it's like we're laying in bed. Justin and I just like, imagine Justin and I just like back, because she's in our room, just scrolling on our phone, listening to a dog go like this. Ah! 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 Ah!
You wake up. Where's the kids?
And she just does that for like 15 minutes a night, and then she just goes to sleep. So we just have to like soldier through it. Did you bring some like toys or a towel and like rub it on the mom? And yes, I even bought a stuffed animal dog that I thought looked like the mom. Like my puppy is cognizant enough to clock this, but I was like, this is the one that looks most like her, and it has a heartbeat. So we rubbed it on the mom. She seems to be like okay with everything except being in a crate by herself. So, but we did find out she's kind of like a bird where you could just put a blanket over it and she'll stop. She doesn't know where she is anymore.
Also, rewinding back to the fact that you bought a dog that looks like its mother with a heartbeat is actually the meanest thing you could do. Just for the record. You're like, it looks like her. It sounds like her. It smells like her. It is not her.
It isn't her, and it's not going to respond to you in any way. Good night.
I would scream too. I would imagine being a human being, and they're like, okay, we've just taken you from your parents.
Wait, stop. Imagine being a human being. You need to stop right there.
Imagine being a human being.
I can't follow you this.
Who has been taken from their parents, given a life-size body pillow of a lookalike of their parents. It smells like them. It even has a heartbeat. You're resting your head on its chest being like, okay, I think Mom? I can. Mom? No response. You would also wake up going, ah! Ah!
Ah! This fresh horror, it persists every night.
And that is how this one is going to end.
Perfect.
Well, as always, thank you for that information. And again, giving me some topics for my meetings this week. I look forward to 2 weeks from now when we sit down to do it all again.
I'm only here to serve.
I end them like this these days, but subscribe to this podcast if you already haven't. You know what? No, don't even. You know what you need to do? Take your dominant hand, reach over your shoulder.
Right or left? Right or left, doesn't matter.
Hey, pat yourself on the back for making it this far through any one of our episodes. Even if you fast forward, even if you skipped half of it, you knew there was something waiting for you at the end, and we gave you the body pillow that smells and sounds like your mother, and you would wake up screaming too.
And that's why you're the Crispies. That's why you're the Crispies.
All right, 2 weeks, run it back.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.